There are moments in life when a person doesn't just feel invisible, they feel erased. That was how Hannah Cooper felt the moment she stepped inside the restaurant that afternoon, drenched from the sudden New York rainstorm and carrying the heavy weight of a week that had crushed her spirit beyond recognition. She stood at the entrance, her hair slightly damp, her hands trembling as she tried to steady her breath, and all around her people turned away as if her presence somehow disrupted their perfect lunchtime scenes. It wasn't the rain on her clothes or the tiredness in her eyes. It was something deeper, something she feared others could sense, that she was broken, exhausted, and painfully alone. And yet still, she needed a moment to sit, to breathe, to stop running from everything that had gone wrong. But not a single person seemed willing to offer even the smallest act of kindness. If you believe kindness and second chances can change a life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Hannah's world had begun unraveling just 10 days earlier. She had moved to the city from Ohio with a promise of a job that suddenly vanished due to corporate restructuring. Her savings were thin, her apartment hunt had failed, and the friend she was supposed to stay with temporarily had backed out at the last minute because of unexpected family plans. Hannah wasn't angry, just defeated. She carried everything she owned in a tote bag and suitcase, now sitting in a locker at the bus station. She had spent the prior night sitting in a 24-hour cafe until the employees told her she had to leave because she looked like she was camping. Every step she took since then felt like a step deeper into a storm she had no map for. So when she entered the restaurant that day, clean, bright, warm, filled with clinking glasses and the soft hum of conversation, she desperately hoped someone would look at her and see a human being instead of an inconvenience. But the hostess barely glanced up before saying the place was full, even though Hannah could clearly see multiple empty tables behind her. A group of women by the window whispered and stared. A couple who had been seated alone later placed their bags on the extra chairs and avoided Hannah's hopeful look. Even the manager, who was adjusting silverware on a counter, suggested she try somewhere more casual, as if her appearance disqualified her from a simple seat. Hannah's throat tightened as embarrassment and exhaustion washed over her in equal waves. She stood frozen, gripping the strap of her bag, barely able to swallow the grief rising in her chest. She wasn't asking for charity, just a chair, a moment, a tiny space to collect herself and think about her next step before she broke apart completely. But no one cared. No one even tried. Across the room, Mark Bennett, a 34-year-old single father with sandy blonde hair and a gentle strength about him, watched the entire exchange. He had come to the restaurant for a rare, quiet lunch, something he hardly allowed himself between juggling his accounting job and raising his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. But when he saw Hannah standing there, small, drenched, defeated, something in his chest tightened. He didn't know her, but he knew the look of someone fighting a battle no one else could see. He had worn that expression himself the year his wife passed away, and he was left alone with a toddler and a mountain of responsibilities he had never prepared for. Mark glanced at Sophie, who was busy coloring on a kid's menu beside him, then looked back at Hannah. She hadn't moved. She looked like she was deciding whether to leave or crumble where she stood. Without thinking, Mark slowly stood up and gently pulled out the empty chair across from him, the legs making a soft scrape against the polished floor. Hannah looked up at the sound, confused, until she saw him looking at her, not with pity, but with warmth. He didn't wave her over or speak loudly. He simply offered a seat, an unspoken gesture that said, "You deserve a place to rest," and for the first time in days, someone finally saw her. The moment Hannah approached his table, her knees nearly buckled from relief. She eased onto the chair as if every cell in her body sighed. Mark didn't ask anything, he didn't demand an explanation, he just existed in quiet understanding, giving her the space to breathe, and Hannah needed that more than she could ever articulate. As the minutes passed, the restaurant continued around them, unaware of the small miracle unfolding in one quiet corner. The air felt warmer now, the soft lighting less harsh, and the weight on Hannah's chest slowly lightened. She allowed herself to finally inhale deeply, something she hadn't done in days. Hannah took in the little details of the table, the neatly folded napkin, the condensation on the water glass, the crayon drawing Sophie proudly pushed toward her. Those simple, human things brought her back into the world she felt pushed out of. She thought about the past week, about all the doors that had closed on her, and how one stranger had opened a new one without even knowing her name. Mark watched Hannah closely, not intrusively but with the awareness of someone who understood brokenness and resilience intimately. He remembered the nights he held Sophie in his arms while crying silently into her hair, the days he felt judged as he navigated public spaces alone with a toddler, and the moments he wished someone, anyone, would extend a hand instead of a stare. That was why he couldn't ignore Hannah. He knew that sometimes the smallest kindness could pull someone back from the edge. As Hannah regained her composure, she felt the urge to hold on to this moment like a fragile piece of hope. She felt safe for the first time in days, sitting across from a stranger who didn't expect anything from her, didn't evaluate her, didn't push her away. In that quiet bubble, her life didn't feel quite so unraveling. She thought of the job that never came through, the empty promise of stability, and how quickly people turned cold when someone needed them. Yet here was one man, with a child by his side and a life of his own to manage, choosing compassion when no one else did. Gradually, as she sat longer, her mind shifted from panic to clarity. She realized she needed a plan, not despair. She still had skills, determination, and resilience, even if she had forgotten that amid the chaos. And somehow, sitting at this table helped her remember who she was before everything spiraled. Mark eventually paid his bill and gathered Sophie's crayons, preparing to leave. Hannah could feel time slipping away, the moment nearing its end. A small ache grew in her chest because she didn't want this encounter to disappear as quickly as it began. The kindness she experienced felt like a lifeline she wasn't ready to let go of. But life has a way of moving forward whether one is ready or not. When Mark stood, he gave Hannah a brief, encouraging smile, one that told her she had worth even on her hardest day, and Sophie, with the innocent sincerity only a child could have, handed Hannah one of her drawings before skipping toward the exit. It was a crayon sketch of 3 stick figures sitting at a table beneath a big sun. It was simple, imperfect, and somehow exactly what Hannah needed, a reminder that light existed. After they left, Hannah remained at the table for several minutes, tears finally slipping down her cheeks, not from sadness but from the overwhelming relief of knowing she hadn't been completely forgotten by the world. The restaurant around her didn't matter anymore. The stares she received earlier faded into insignificance. All she could think about was how one small gesture from a stranger had revived something inside her that had been dangerously close to dying. That afternoon became the beginning of her rebuilding. Hannah walked out of the restaurant with a newfound determination. She found a temporary shelter that night, reached out to job agencies the next morning, and within 2 weeks, she landed an entry-level administrative job at a small real estate firm in Brooklyn. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start, and it was hers. She used her first paycheck to rent a room in a shared apartment, and the first thing she placed on her nightstand was Sophie's crayon drawing. Months passed, seasons changed, life shifted. Hannah slowly rebuilt every broken piece of her world, fueled by the memory of one man's kindness. And one chilly spring morning, while buying coffee near her new office, she unexpectedly saw Mark and Sophie across the street. Sophie was laughing as she tried to carry a bouquet of flowers that was almost bigger than she was. Hannah felt her heart warm instantly. She wasn't sure if they would even recognize her after so much time had passed, but when they caught sight of her, both father and daughter smiled, as if seeing an old friend. In that moment, Hannah realized something extraordinary. She had survived her darkest days, not because someone saved her, but because one person reminded her she was worth saving. That reminder had given her the strength to stand up again, to move forward, to believe in herself, and no matter where life took her next, she would always carry that truth in her heart. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more stories that inspire and heal. Before the story ends, comment what kindness means to you. Hannah walked away from that chance encounter with gratitude overflowing from her chest. She no longer felt invisible, erased, or forgotten by the world. She understood now that even in the hardest moments, light could find its way through the cracks, carried by the hands of strangers who choose compassion. And because of that one pulled-out chair on a rainy day in New York, Hannah Cooper learned to believe in humanity again, and, more importantly, to believe in herself.